Alright, today we're going to be talking about Orisa, and now this is actually an interesting hero because in general, Orisa has never really been an issue when it comes to underpowered or overpowered, ever since the release of Overwatch 2, right? So when we take a look at Season 1 and Season 2 in general, no one is really mentioning Orisa in terms of, honestly, if she's unbalanced. Because in a way, if you look at other roles, she's kind of like Ashe. No one really has a problem with her being underpowered or overpowered. She was honestly just balanced and a viable solution in a lot of compositions, so wouldn't really be a throw pick in my opinion, especially if you're at the top ranks. However, with the release of Season 2, something unexpected occurred. Blizzard basically just rolled out a buff for Orisa without prior notice. So, we were actually promised to see certain nerfs and buffs to very prominent heroes like Sojourn, Roadhog, etc. Orisa was not mentioned. So when these buffs happened, because that's all those changes were, they were insane buffs I'll cover in a moment, we were shocked, and honestly a lot of people have been playing Orisa. So before we continue on the video, once again, if you guys are new to the channel, you guys have been enjoying this content, definitely do consider subscribing, because once again I upload these videos daily, and once again 99% of you guys are not subscribed. So if you guys enjoy the content, definitely consider subscribing, and let's continue on with the video. So we're going to be starting off with the changes because I think it's very important to go over, right? Very simple. Your Terra Surge, once again, that is your ultimate, which is very powerful now. It no longer is stopped by barriers or shields. It actually pierces through them upon impact, meaning you don't get free value off of those shields. For example, if you're a Sigma or a Reinhardt or even a Ramatra now, which I covered previously in my previous video, right? So now it pierces through impact, so you can definitely deal a lot more damage than before, especially on other tanks. Moving on to the next change here, your Augmented Fusion Driver. Damage fall off range, that's your primary fire once again. Fall off range increased from 15 to 25 meters. That is why you see this insane shift in Orisa playstyle, and I thought that was very important to go over. You can actually kill a lot quicker on Orisa. Believe it or not, those 10 meters matter quite a bit, because as Orisa, you actually do have decent amount of mobility, especially when you use your E skill and you're able to traverse the map much faster. You have that much increased mobility. You're actually able to deal more damage because you're able to dive in. So what Super is doing here, and honestly some of these top tier tanks, is that they're jumping in and they're going after the squishies first. So in a way, for the first time ever as an Orisa, or honestly you could do this previously as well, you're actually ignoring the tank, and most of your fights in all these engagements are after the DPS and the squishies, because you can actually run right through the enemy front line and their tank and just focus the squishies and deal so much damage. So where does Orisa's value come from that we see here from Super's gameplay? It comes from your aggression. It honestly is not mechanically demanding. Playing Orisa, once again, landing those spears is good, right? You definitely want to land those spears. However, on the other hand, what you want to focus on is actually your aggression. So I'll say, where does the value come from? For example, on Sojourn, you need to have skills to land those shots. On Roadhog, you need to have skill to land those hooks, although that is questionable how much skill you actually need, right? But that's a topic for discussion in another video. With Orisa, you just need to have decent game sense and just be super aggressive. The more aggressive you are as an Orisa, the more you are pushing the enemy targets back, the more value you get. And the more pressure you actually put out, the more you build up your ult faster, which now pierces through shields, and you get that value there. Now, moving on to the next point here, something I wanted to cover is your cooldowns on Orisa, which I've definitely noticed Super here, and honestly, once again, some of these top 500 tanks are doing, is watch your cooldown specifically with regards to your primary fire. You have now less fall off in terms of how much damage you can do with your primary fire, meaning you definitely don't want that to overheat. So here's a quick tip for you guys, right? So when you have your, once again, shield up or your shift skill, basically, depending on how you want to look at it, your cooldowns are actually a lot better and you can shoot much more. So if you combo that with very steady pace of aim, once again, hopefully these terms are not too hard for you guys to understand, is that you're actually able to deal much more damage without overheating. Now, as a Orisa, once again, like I mentioned, because you are going to be diving in and trying to be as aggressive as possible, if your primary fire never overheats, you actually get much more value out of it. Because as an Orisa, if you're not dealing that much damage and you don't have your shift skill on cooldown ready to use, you're actually very easy to kill. Now, in most of these games that I've played, and honestly a lot of other people have played, since the buff to Orisa, she has basically become almost impossible to kill. And that's largely because the tank is watching their cooldowns properly, making sure they're diving in when they're actually able to use those skills. With the shift skill, comboed with your primary fire almost never really being on cooldown, and you're just jumping in between skills, kind of like Doomfist pre-nerf, which was honestly horrifying to go over in general, you are able to basically just apply constant pressure until the enemy team gets wiped. Now here's the problem though. Orisa can actually deny a lot of value and gap from the enemy team, meaning if you're jumping in and getting in people's faces using your E-spinner and just honestly spin to win in general, depending on how you want to look at it, the enemy team cannot close that gap. Now imagine a Sojourn uses her overclock and you're jumping in her face, shifting, and she can't do that much damage to you, and you're using E-skill to basically just deflect all her damage. There's not much she can do. So she can't even kill you, she can't kill your teammates, she can't get any value out of that overpowered overclock, which even after the nerf is still very powerful, especially with the Mercy Pocket. You have just denied so much value from the enemy team as an Orisa, which is why I think honestly in this current meta, Orisa is probably top tier more than Roadhog. Because I want to talk about Roadhog for a second here. Why is Orisa more overpowered than the Roadhog in my opinion? It's because obviously with Roadhog, you can honestly deny so much gap. If you're far away, the Roadhog can't land the hooks, and it's generally very predictable when a Roadhog wants to hook you. They kind of walk forward at a very weird pace, and they just kind of stand still, like they're going to slow down to basically land the hook, and you can just dodge it. With Orisa, there's not much you can do to counter besides honestly just try to diff their tank and just play better, which is in a lot of cases not that easy to do. So in general, is Orisa now overpowered and unbalanced? In my opinion, not really, because at the end of the day, if a tank cannot one-shot, I don't think it's a big deal. Is she very strong? Yes, in this current meta, definitely, especially with Ramattra and all those heroes that definitely do want to close the gap and get as close as possible. Orisa is probably by far the strongest tank at closing that gap. So in that sense, yes, Orisa is very strong. Now moving forward, how can this change and how can Blizzard actually help this out? Well, to be quite honest, give other tanks more mobility to traverse the map, because what you want to do to counter a tank is honestly just tank diff them and just get a better tank. You cannot counter a tank with a DPS basically buff or a support buff. You can't do that because these are two different roles. So I know I'm diverging here a bit, but in general, how can they balance this? How can they fix this? And honestly, seeing super gameplay here is insane how much pressure you can actually apply now with Orisa. Is you just want to buff other tanks to have more mobility so they're able to deny that gap closing ability that Orisa now has. Now once again, I hope you guys did enjoy these quick tips and honestly a cover of Orisa post buff of Season 2 in Overwatch 2 from a Super's perspective, who's once again not a solely tank main, but obviously a very decent tank. If you guys did, definitely do subscribe, and honestly I want to see if we can reach 3,000 subscribers very soon. We're very close, and honestly the channel's taking off. Thank you guys so much. And before we end the video here, I did want to pose a quick question to you guys. If you guys were on the Blizzard team and you're on the dev team and you're kind of in a way in charge of these hero buffs and nerfs and changes, what would you do to balance Orisa in your opinion? You can honestly do nothing, because that seems like what Blizzard is going to do for the next season for sure, is that you can just say she's balanced and honestly she's not that overpowered. In my opinion, that is not the case. So if you guys were able to change, what would you change? Would you add more cooldown to her primary fire so she's not able to dish that much damage? Because at the end of the day, a tank is not a DPS, which is why we had an issue with Roadhog being able to one-shot. Orisa now does so much damage, she can actually wipe out a team all by herself. So if that is not good, then should we nerf her or not? So some questions, once again, make sure you guys drop a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Hope you guys enjoyed this once again, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.